Welcome to the Manchester Movie Morgue podcast. Each week, we dissect a movie to decide whether it belongs in the morgue or escapes to freedom. Manchester's answer to Norman, Ebert, and Kermode. Over to your hosts, Lee, Rob, and Carl.
Sylvester Stallone, Over the Top.
Before we started this, we were just talking about how we came to choose it, and we don't actually can really remember. I think we were just like riffing around films, weren't we? And we ended up on this one because it's one which, for me, has a massive nostalgic pleasure. And I watched this film, admittedly, from beginning to end with like rose-tinted spectacles all the way through. And I know it's completely messed up and flawed, and I know that the soundtrack is cheesy as hell, but I just love this film. And I will defend it, and I'll try and keep it out of the morgue. So,
Rob, was this a film that you would? So presumably you saw this on VHS quite a lot back in the day. Was this a rental in your house?
Yeah, because my family, my dad was always into the Rockies, and it's like Rocky Light, isn't it? It's like the Pepsi Challenge. Like you're going for a Rocky, but instead of Rocky, you get arm wrestling, and it's and then but you do get that you get this sentimental schmaltzy drama in the middle, which is quite nice, and the soundtrack is memorable, even if it is cheesy and a bit dated.
So, was this film the beginning of the turning the baseball cap back to front? Was that what started that trend? I don't know.
The switch. I can actually remember doing the switch as a kid. I can do it.
I definitely remember people doing the over-the-top technique as well. When you used to arm wrestle people at school, people used to do that re-grip. I definitely remember that going on.
The thing is, I've got a really weird shaped head, so if I wear a hat, I just look weird. And then if I do put the hat backwards, it just falls off my weird shaped head. So
I'm there with you, Rob. I'm not a hat wearer. I am not a hat wearer at all. It just looks odd on my strangely shaped bonds. But it's funny you said that. Yeah, lots of children at school would do the cap turn around thing, which makes me think that Over the Top must have been a good selling a rental title on when it was on rent, because we were talking before about the box office for this film. Now, at cinema, this film, although it made some money, this must have obviously been a disappointing performance box office wise.
Oh yeah.
So in many ways, it's like a typical Cannon film where it would make most of its money, or a good chunk of its money on the home video market, which was true for a lot of their titles. But my guess is they had higher ambitions for this one in terms of recruiting Stallone to do it and paying him a lot of money.
I have got a couple of different titles. It was known in Mexico as Halcon, which is the literal translation of hawk, and then in Brazil it translates to then in Brazil it translates to Hawk, the champion of champions.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That sounds like a bad
nice
80s computer game. Yeah.
And in Portuguese it translates to the wrestler. So
The wrestler.
The wrestler, indeed.
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke, take note. Yeah.
I mean, can we mention the poster? Because when you're a kid and you see that poster, I mean, that is, I don't know if you've got a picture of it near you. I've got a picture of it now. And it's like a major, it's like Big Trouble in Little China type poster, isn't it? It's like massive.
I love the artwork, yeah.
Yeah, massive Stallone. He's got wrapping on his arm, and his arms look huge. And he's got there seems to be like wings. Oh no, it's a hawk flying behind him.
It's the hood, the hood ornament, isn't it? The hawk, yeah.
Yeah.
He gives that hood ornament a jolly good polishing at the start of this film.
Oh, yeah.
He's sprucing up the truck and grooming himself, and he gives that hawk damn good buffing.
Good polish.
He's also, I mean, he's in love with his own name so much, isn't he? It's like, he drives around in a truck called Hawk Haulage, and he's got a hawk on the front. And
although it's a good name, not everyone knows what it is, because we were talking about earlier. Sometimes he's Hawk, and in many scenes he's referred to as Hawks. So Howard Hawks, but so I don't know what's going on with that. I have a theory.
There's also, can we mention the little in-joke they had as well? His son is called Mike Hawks, isn't it?
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
Hawks. Mike, yeah. I mean, my cock. There you go. We might as well say it in our Mancox and my cock. So, they just.
Oh, I see. Oh, I've got it. Okay.
Did you not just pick that up? No, it was like already they had like a little bit of tongue in cheek, almost like things going against it. I mean, what was going for is that whether you like it or not, is that Stallone is charismatic. He's Mr. 80s, isn't he? You either with Stallone or Schwarzenegger, and I love both of them actually, so I wasn't really that biased, but he
I
is
think
like
Stallone, what Stallone has in his kind of armory, he's generally a good actor. If you look at the films he started in, his early career especially, he was like kind of maybe not quite in Pacino's league, but he was kind of like in that kind of bracket. He was making like rough and ready films with interesting characters, and he had to act. He had to act in those films. He carries that through.
Didn't he do a soft porn? I think he did a soft porn, didn't it? It's like there's some he used to show it on their like late night show. There's the one where he's like dancing in some showers or something. He's like dancer or something. I'm sure.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they used to show clips of it on The Word, which is a British TV show of the 1990s.
It was either that or Eurotrash.
Yeah, Eurotrash maybe. I forget. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure an IMDb check will bring that one up. But yeah, I think that was re-released as well after he'd become famous and possibly retitled. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
The Hawk.
The Hawk.
I always thought it was like Stallone versus Schwarzenegger, but I always think he's a bit of a better actor really than Schwarzenegger.
I think so. Schwarzenegger does what he can do, but Stallone definitely has the acting chops, and that's what carries him through films like, later he did Copland. Earlier in his career, films like Rocky 1 and 2.
Yeah, even the later films like Balboa, in the Rocky franchise. In Balboa, there's a lot of, he has to go through a lot. He's dealing with, he's got cancer in the film, and he's like, he's fighting that, and those scenes are quite really well done. Then you can't pull that off by just being a slurry macho actor. His voice is distinctive as well. I mean, his voice carries a lot of this film, doesn't it? And he has to do that. I was saying to the Lee earlier, he does that sentimental voice a lot, which like Jason Statham, a lot of action stars do when they're trying to show emotions. He just talks a bit quieter. He goes like, "Hey, Michael, I'm your father. I love you, Millie." And then he goes back to being it's like the switch. He throws the switch, and then he has to go back to toughen him up. The plot is that Lincoln Hawk is a trucker, and you see that right away at the beginning. Also, it's cut with his son, who he's estranged from. He's not seen his son for 10 years. He's in a military academy. He's a spoiled brat. He's a rich kid. His estranged wife, who the boy's been brought up by, is in a hospital. She's very ill.
Is it ever said what she's ill with? Does it ever say?
It's not said.
I think it's an unnamed illness, isn't it? I don't think they talk about
it. There's lots of unsaid things, like why he disappeared for 10 years. It will come up a lot, and he gets confronted on this lot. But the thing is that Lincoln, it's been decided by the mother, is almost like a dying wish, that she wants the father and son to reunite, and she wants him to pick the boy up from the academy and drive him back home. And it's going to be like a 3-day drive. So all those ill feelings between father and son will clear up, and it will all end up rosy. But the problem is in the film, and he's like you've got a father-in-law character and everything. Played Robert Loggia, who is like Mr. 80s actor.
He's in a lot of films. We weren't sure about the pronunciation of his name. I think it might be Robert Loggia if it's Italian.
Yeah.
But maybe it's Robert Loggia, pronounced like that. He's in loads of 80s acts all over the place. Yeah.
You're going to remember him as the cuddly toy shop owner in Big, who does the famous piano sequence with Tom Hanks. That's for most people. So, and that's what was stuck in my head most of the time. But in this film, he just plays one track, doesn't he? He's just angry. He thinks Lincoln Hawk, who's Stallone's character, is a loser and a bum, and he doesn't want him anywhere near his grandson.
Yeah, we don't know what this guy does. We're not sure what this guy does because he's very wealthy, isn't he? He kind of lives in mansions. He's able to get like the top suites in these hotels and fly by jet. And we're not sure exactly what it is he does, if it's kind of legitimate or maybe dodgy.
We do know he runs a trucking company, doesn't he? Because we're skipping to the end here, where there is like a truck with his name on. There's like Cutler haulage or whatever it is. So I think he does run a.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
What they're transporting in those trucks, I don't know, because I used to work with somebody whose family had a trucking company, and they were comfortable, but they weren't that well off. That they had a Bel Air property with a security detail and all that kind of some security goons and things like that. So yeah, I don't know what it was.
What is this guy running? What is this guy running in these trucks?
It's Frey Bentos. It's Frey Bentos pies. Other pies are available. Frey Bentos across the state line, and that's why I can afford.
Are they banned? Are they banned in certain states of America? Is that what's going on? They're kind of, like in Smoking Bandit, where they have to transport the beer to different states where it's outlawed. Perhaps this is Frey Bentos pies being delivered to Arkansas or something, and that's where the real money is.
We have to clear up for people as well. If you're going to go into this film and think you're going to get beginning to end action like a Cannon film, you're not going to get that. It basically at the heart of the film. And even Stallone, I watched interviews of him selling it. He says it's a film with a lot of heart. The heart of the film is a melodrama between a father and son, isn't it? It's about a father trying to get his son to forgive him for the mistakes he made in the past. The mistakes we're never going to find out because the scriptwriters couldn't be bothered to tell us. and it's about a boy who's been very pampered and spoiled. He's not really seen other sides of the tracks. And Stallone showing the other side of the tracks in this film. He shows him actually as a father, he's the most negligent father I've ever seen in my life. And I've met a few. it's day one. He picks the boy up from the academy, and he's not seen the boy, has he?
Don't forget, he's actually late for the kid's graduation, so he starts off on a bad foot, doesn't he? He kind of shows up after the graduation.
He's not as late as a granddad, crucially, which allows Hawk the time to actually go and speak to his son and take him away before the granddad's goons get there to collect him. Everyone's late for this poor kid.
I know, they don't give a crap. It's like a really important day. It's his graduation, and nobody shows up. Mother's in hospital, dying. Mother's in hospital dying. Negligent father turns up late. Father-in-law, granddad, who's supposed to have raised him like a son, can't even be asked to turn up. And there's no wonder this kid the kid's nose is already out of joint when Stallone Hawk comes wandering into the colonel's office to meet with his son. Yeah, and it doesn't go very well, does it, when they meet? The kid's kid's got an attitude.
No, it says something like, do you think you can repair 12 years worth of relationship in 3 days? It's almost like kind of a tagline for the film.
Yeah, he says, why have we got to travel in this disgusting truck? Why don't we fly? So I think his granddad has a private jet. He's used to flying everywhere, isn't he?
Yes. In fact, granddad uses the jet later on in the film, doesn't he, to try to beat him to Vegas.
The reason why Hawk is late for the graduation is that we see him in a truck stop just washing himself, doesn't he? Like he's by the side of the road, like some panhandler. He's just cleaning his teeth, spitting in the street, rubbing a cloth over his muscly, sweaty top. And let's talk about the sweat. I mean, we're going to mention the sweat a lot, but the sweat in this film is dripping off the screen, isn't it?
It was sponsored by Castrol, wasn't it?
Yeah. I felt filthy after this. I had to have a wash.
This film has a smell of BO and Brute, doesn't it? It's definitely got that 80s. You could almost.
It really does. I felt like I needed a wash after watching this film, and some, like a couple of mints, some extra chewing gum.
Not until the first stop with his son that the sweat starts being applied, doesn't it? Because he's actually not that sweaty at the beginning, but then it's the first. They've been on a little truck drive, they're not getting on well, and there's a bit where he pulls over at the side of the road, and because his son pretends to be sick, his son just like for a clever boy, he just runs across a full freeway, doesn't it, causing multiple cars to pile up.
That's right, and this I wonder if this particular sequence was like a later rewrite, because I think I was reading something about the original screenwriter, David Engelbach was his name. And he said that he became really disillusioned with what they were doing with his script because they started to feel the need to add these kind of big action set pieces. And I wonder if this was the kind of thing, because you're right, it's totally out of character, isn't it, for him to just, he's not 3 or 4 years old. He's presented as like a sensible young man, and all of a sudden he runs across the motorway
like a complete stranger has grabbed him or something, or his life's in danger to run out of the truck like that. It was a bit out of character.
This was an addition that they maybe thought about later on because they needed some action. We'll have a scene where he just runs across a motorway for no good reason. We get loads of big vehicles involved. So yeah, I mean, he's lucky there. He's lucky. He doesn't get himself run over.
It's also weird film logic, isn't it? You know, often you see films and it's like a film logic. Like the fact is that this guy, this big muscly trucker, is running after a well-dressed boy in a military suit, and then he's like manhandling him. He rips his jacket arm off and then pins him against a tree. I mean, that's what you would see if you were driving along the motorway. And nobody reacts, do they? They just,
I mean, he's literally had custody of him for 5 minutes, and he's already like nearly dead on the motorway. You know, it's not going well, is it?
This is terrible parenting. This is, you know, no wonder he's not been there for several years. He's been kept off the scene, hasn't he? There's, I think that's what's happened. He's a liability.
Hawk tries to explain to him that he's been writing to him for years, but Michael's like, I never got the letters. So later we'll find out more about that. But
I wonder what could have happened there with that plot development. And this film's not very subtle either. Earlier on, we were talking about when Stallone turns up at the military academy. He's literally wearing a shirt with a blue collar. You know, so and this is just purely so that all the extras can that he's walking past can kind of look at him disapprovingly, say like, "Well, what's he doing here?"
Yeah, can we mention what's the thing with the braces as well? We call them braces in England. If you listen to America, it's just suspenders, isn't it? It's a weird. It's an 80s fashion choice which Hawk adopts all the way through the film, doesn't he? Even when he's arm wrestling, he wears braces, doesn't he, and white vest. The white vest and braces seems to be the ensemble he goes.
not many sleeves in this movie, are there? Really, there's a lot of tank tops. Yeah.
To make up for his first negligent parenting, he takes him to a diner to have some food, doesn't he? Which is full of rednecks, rednecks boozing, swearing, and womanizing, and he thinks that'd be a good choice.
There's not many women in there, apart from the lady behind the counter. It is a sausage fest. There are no ladies in there at all. And we're talking before about the smell of this film.
Why is everybody so sweaty? Like, what's going on in the toilets? Is they're coming out with white noses and sweat all over them? I don't understand. Yeah, there's definitely something going on in there.
It's a bit cruising, isn't it? As well, this bar. There's lots of certain stereotypes of Blue Oyster type things in this bar, and he's as soon as he walks in, all the other men know him, don't they? There's lots of like people patting him on the back and going, "Hey, Hawks."
There's Hawks. We don't know.
Yeah, he's really famous, and he's famous because a guy approaches him as he's sat down with his son to offer him his Smasher approaches him to offer. Yeah.
This guy is not an actor. This guy who approaches him, he's not an actor. He's clearly not an actor, but he's most probably a professional wrestler.
I thought it was Doug the Bounty Hunter, to be honest.
Doug the Bounty Hunter, yes. Yeah, he's got that look. He's got the look.
The 80s perm.
His son's in this really unsafe environment, completely out of his comfort zone, and this Smasher comes up to him and says, "You want to have an arm wrestle?" And he just dumps his son, does he? He just walks off to go for his arm wrestle.
Yeah. He doesn't explain where he's going or anything. He just says, "Wait here, I'll be back."
And it's at that point that his son gets approached by our main nemesis in the film. Sweaty big
bull. Sweaty burly.
Sweaty bull bollocks.
He's basically a giant guy with a little beard and a big bald shiny head, who says to he starts chatting to the kid, doesn't he? It's quite uncomfortable actually in watching it with 21st century eyes, isn't it?
He hits on his son. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen in any film. He actually hits on his son. Because his son kind of says something like, "Oh, my dad's just in there." And the son still doesn't know what dad's doing. He says, "Oh, my dad's in there." And Bull turns around and kind of looks at him, eyes him up and down and goes, "Ah, too bad."
Yeah.
I could whisk you away from here in my truck. And he hits on his son. So this is the villain. Not the villain. This is setting up the main opponent for the end of the film, I suppose.
His nemesis, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this going back to what you mentioned earlier, that basically he's quite famous in this bar, isn't he? Lincoln. He's quite famous, and loads of people patting him on the back. A guy we've never even heard of called Smasher walks up to him, offers him an arm wrestle, says, "I hear you're one of the best." So he's known in the arm wrestling circuits and in gay trucking circuits. They take him to he goes off to this little table to have this big arm wrestle match, and this is where we get introduced to his. Does he do the baseball cap? Does he do the switch for the first time in this one, or does he not? He doesn't need a switch on this guy, does he? I think
too easy. This one's too easy. It's over
in this one, I don't think he does. I think he does do the over the top. He does so the over the top move, which the film is the you kind of loosen your fingers and then you get your fingers over the top of the hand, and then you have the advantage, and then you bring your man down in arm wrestling terms, not in gay cruising terms. So he's arm wrestling smash, and it looks like he's going to lose, and then he does the finger, and then he fingers him, and he beats him.
I missed that scene.
Bull comes up to him and says, "Double or nothing, Hawk," and Hawk's like, "Let's wait till Vegas." Bull's like, "Too bad your old man's yellow."
You got lucky again, huh, Hawks?
How you doing, Bull?
Better than you. Right now, double or nothing. What do you say?
Let's just wait for Vegas.
Come on, let's do it now. I feel like kicking some ass.
Let's wait till Vegas, okay?
You ain't got a prayer in Vegas.
We'll see.
Too bad your old man's yellow, kid.
He's waiting for the payday, isn't he? Yeah, he's all about the money. Sly.
All he wants is a truck. He says at the end, he says, "All he wants is a truck." So that's my Stallone impression.
This guy is like everyone knows now, and he's like the hot thing in arm wrestling. He's only 20-1 later on in the film, isn't he? And the betting odds on him in the tournament, the over the top arm wrestling tournament, which is conveniently named after the film. But well, he goes back to his kid, doesn't he? He goes back to his kid, and
he's like, "Oh yeah, you're still here. You're still here. Sorry, I was off getting greased up with this muscly guy over there. Looks like Diamond Dallas Page."
They get back in the truck, and we've got the really cheesy Kenny Loggins music.
Yeah, Loggins did one track, didn't he? But actually, the person credited with music for this entire film is Giorgio Moroder.
The semi-final, doesn't he? A bit of a score for the semi-final, I think, later on.
Yeah.
The Kenny Loggins track, which is "Meet Me Halfway," it gets played a lot, does it? A lot,
2 or 3 times. Yeah, I think we see it quite early at this point.
There's an emotional piano version of it where it's just a gentle little tinkling, and whenever there's a feeling bit, like they play it a little bit, don't they?
Loggins was the king of the 80s soundtrack, though, wasn't he? Really, yeah.
He was the go-to guy, no question. What did he do? He did
Top Gun, wasn't it? Top Gun, I think.
Caddyshack with "I'm All Right." That was him.
Yeah. He did
Caddyshack 2 as well.
Footloose. There was 2 or 3, wasn't there? Yeah, big films that he did.
Yeah, I don't know if
you've ever fortune because they used this song about 2 or 3 times. So.
I don't know if you've ever seen Kenny Loggins as well. At the time, he looked like Chuck Norris. If Chuck Norris had basically lost all machismo and muscle wastage.
What do you think IT professionals do? I wonder if Loggins ever I wonder if he's ever worked at, somewhere where he's required to kind of like access emails or something, and he must be the butt of so many jokes.
When he rings up IT help, they say, "Did Kenny log in?"
Kenny who?
So he's just won his first arm wrestling. He's introduced his son to the world of arm wrestling, and he won $1,000 for that fight with Smasher, didn't he? So and then he has to. This is where they keep on cutting to. He has to ring the wife, doesn't he? He has to keep on calling the Australian wife, and she has a chat with her son.
We get another opportunity for us to find out why he left, but again, no explanation. Again,
no
the reasons why he left in the first place.
No, he just keeps on saying it was the biggest mistake he made. And the kid confronts him and says that my granddad said you left because you were running drugs, and he doesn't deny it, does he? He just says, "I made a mistake." That's.
I wonder that if perhaps Hawk was running drugs, but perhaps the granddad had asked him to do it, and I wonder if this was part of the conflict in the original, maybe one of the original drafts, where he'd asked Hawk to run the drugs, and he kind of used him as some kind of scapegoat at the end, saying, "Oh, he's the one running the drugs. My company's clean."
I like that idea.
Maybe.
That would have been much better film, Carl. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I do try.
I think he was running. He was running endangered birds. He was running hawks across the state line.
Birds' eggs. Hawks' eggs.
Lincoln Hawks haulage and it was literal. He didn't have a permit, and he went down
He was
for it.
hawking hawks. No, I think Michael's expecting a really plush hotel for the night, and he gets told that he's going to have to sleep in the truck. Now, it's not even like a truck that's designed for sleeping in. They're just going to sit upright in a truck.
That's a douchebag. He's not even got a pillow. He's not even got a pillow for him. He's just like,
oh no, yeah, just use my shoulder. Yeah.
He says to his estranged son, he says, like, you can use my shoulder in the night. I mean, the kid hates him. The kid doesn't trust him, and he's offering his sweaty, greasy shoulder, isn't it? But as a pillow.
Can you imagine? I mean, he didn't even go for a shower, before before collecting from the military academy. He's not even showered. He's had what we call a gentleman's wash. He just found a bowl of water somewhere, and he's just had a bit of a splash around, and he must be stinky. There's no question, unless he's got himself covered in, Lee, as you said earlier, like plenty of brute, because the brute doesn't have to get some promotion in this film. God, yeah. That's what he seems to be lugging around. If the side of the truck is anything to go by,
that's what he's logging around.
He's logging around the Fabergé brute.
And it got criticised for all the product placements, didn't it? There's a Duracell. There's about 16 different products.
Oh yeah. All those kinds of sports brands on T-shirts later on.
There's a sequence later in the film during the tournament where they actually place an Alka-Seltzer in a glass, and you see the packet. You actually watch the whole Alka-Seltzer being stirred, and then you actually watch it being drank. I mean, it's like it's the most.
It literally does. Do you remember it was the plink plink fizz? It literally does that. Yeah. It shows you putting like two of the tablets in.
They should have had him going, Alka-Seltzer. Available at all good chemists. Just have it more in your face, please. But he just drank some engine oil, hadn't he? So I can't blame him, to be honest, hitting the Alka-Seltzers.
I mean, we know a little bit about the Canon Group, and probably people who are listening to this podcast, hi guys, people will probably know who the Canon Group are and what their history is. It was no surprise at all that they would have taken any and all advertising possibilities and taken the money and literally just shoved them in the film right under your nose. They wouldn't have cared, not one bit.
And we have to mention that the fact that Stallone took $12 million for this film on a 25 million budget?
So hang on, he got 12 million from Canon, but I think the idea was. It wasn't. I think they announced that they were paying him 12 million for a movie, but what actually happened was they split the 12 million between Cobra and Over the Top. So effectively, he was getting, 6 million per movie, but it was still crazy money for those times for a star to be getting paid that kind of amount.
There was even a Hawk action figure.
Was there?
That they released at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would love to have one of them.
I bet they're
going to keep an eye out for them.
Yeah, eBay. Goodness me, I bet they're probably quite rare because they'll be the kind of thing that probably no one bought because the film did it.
Does he sweat when you fill him with water? Does he? Does he have a baseball cap you turn around on his head? I bet he does.
His arm just curls and jerks around all the time. Yeah,
there's certainly plenty of jerking. And I was going to say after the scene where deadbeat dad Stallone he makes his son sleep in the truck without a pillow or any kind of blanket really. It doesn't even give him a jacket. They wake up fine in the morning and there's a bit of a this has got to be like they must have been thinking right what we need here is a bit of a training montage. So when they get up in the morning they're both like doing press ups and I don't know if Stallone's doing some more hawk polishing. And there's a bit of a kind of training montage here, like first thing in the morning. So all of a sudden, they've kind of decided that they've put the differences aside and they're training together, they're working out together.
But as a prime athlete, it's not the best exercise, is it? He literally does a few. He pushes on his bonnet a bit. He polishes his hawk. He pulls his weird chain mechanism in his truck. And
we've got to mention the appearance of the weight chain mechanism because I thought this just appeared. Like midway through the film in his truck from nowhere. But upon closer inspection, it appears that this piece of equipment was in the driver's cab all along. It's just slightly cropped out.
How does he change gears if he's pulling this weight all the time? How is he changing gears and stuff? I doubt that would probably get you 6 points today. I think, wouldn't it? If you were touching that.
Only on long stretches of road, which I think America might have a few. But
Not to mention when he's pulling it, he looks a bit like this. He's rocking back and forth, and he's showing his son how to you have to put your whole body into it. So his eyes are not on the road, is it? he's again. I mean, this is like parenting 101 again. So remember the first thing he did was he was late for graduation. Then he took his son to a sleazy bar and dumped him. Now he's made his son sleep in a verge just at the side of a road overnight. And then what does he do next? Oh, that's it. He thinks he'll teach his son a life lesson. So he takes.
Michael calls him thick, doesn't he? He says, "Oh, you don't read. You've got a mental age of 15." And then Hawk says, "Oh, if you think I'm thick, then come and try and drive this truck on this 80,000 pound truck on a main road. It's not even a car park."
This is he just lets his son drive a truck, a complete killing machine. He lets him drive on an open road, and his son's driving terribly, and Hawk thinks it's really funny. Yeah.
Was there a reference to the son having, had like some kind of driving training at military academy or something?
So, I've driven a June buggy, Daddy, or something, I think he said.
Oh, yeah, that was it. It's a bit different, isn't it, I suppose?
It also echoes, Carl sent us, Lee and I, early in the week, original idea from the scriptwriter of the backstory of Lincoln Hawk, that he was supposed to be more than a trucker, was it? He was supposed to be quite academic, and he reads books, and he's widening in his mind, and he's a lot more than just what he seems. And instead of going with that, they've completely changed it, haven't they? They just make a joke that he doesn't have any books in the truck, does he? He has nothing. What he does have, which is really over the top again, is that he's got photos all over his truck of Michael at different ages.
How come he's got up-to-date photos of Michael, and Michael's not received a letter? So Hawk's sending these letters, he's getting photos back, but no feedback. Wouldn't you ask a question in 10 years?
Yeah. How come I keep on asking Michael these questions and he never responds? What's going on? Yeah, it's really.
He must really hate me.
Focus.
He's not meeting me halfway.
Oh, yeah. So he's already it's going really well, this father-son relationship. So he decides to test his son. He takes his son to another divey diner, and he decides to get his son to take on an arm wrestling contest with the local hooligan, doesn't he? Just these 80s teenagers playing aggressive pinball.
Haircut, mullet.
This kid that looks about 5 years older than him, who's got like little biceps and stuff. I think the guy would have, in real life, would have broken this kid's arm, I think. He's got a sweet mullet as well.
Mullet is in place.
And at this point, Hawk has not taught his son any arm wrestling. He's done a bit of training in the, jumping around and polishing a hawk in the air. But he's not taught him any arm wrestling, has he?
We're going to create a new euphemism today, aren't we, with polishing the hawk?
He says to his son, he offers a best
about that age, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a best of 3 arm wrestle with this kid, and he says to him that, I know my son's going to win. He's the toughest arm wrestler ever. And the son loses the first round because obviously he doesn't know how to arm wrestle. He's devastated, isn't he?
All you wanted to do was embarrass me. Well, you did it, okay? Grandfather always said you were a loser. Now you're trying to make me one, and I hate you for it.
Mike, I don't care what your grandfather thinks about me, okay? All I care about is you. Now, you lost back there because you beat yourself. You let yourself get beat. I know you can do it. You're a special kid. You're my boy, do you understand? But you're also a spoiled, rich brat who's always had everything done for him. Now it's time to do for yourself, Mike, and you can do it. Because I'm telling you, the world meets nobody halfway. Do you understand what that means? If you want it, Mike, you gotta take it. Do you hear me? You gotta take it.
He runs out the diner.
Yeah, he's mentally broken. Yeah.
And this is when Stallone gets to do his famous life speech, which appears in the film a lot. He gets to quote the song as well. He says, life doesn't meet you halfway. You've got to take it. You've got to go out there and take it.
You got to take it. You got to take it. More whispery sly, isn't it? Yeah.
He does. He goes, life doesn't meet you halfway. And then he says to him, it's a really bad mantra as well. He says basically you just have to take what you want, which is not true in life, because if you do take what you want, you go to prison. And then also, he goes to prison later on. He does. He's been following his own advice. Yeah, So he tells his son, take what you want, and life doesn't meet you halfway, and you've had it too easy. So his son goes back in with this newfound wisdom, and his son wins the next two fights. And his son knows the over-the-top technique. He does the loosing fingers and brings the kid down, and he wins, and he's like, and they're really on top of the world. And then again, they ring the ex-wife, don't they? At that point, the mother. The mother who's really sick.
From that point, Mike is best bud of his dad, isn't it? All it took was a truck lesson and one wrestling match, and he's just in love with his dad now, isn't he?
This scene, there's something else happens. So after Michael's been triumphant in the arm wrestling contest, all of a sudden from nowhere, again, is Stallone indoors and the boy's outside. He lets him go out of the restaurant. Yeah, and all of a sudden, these two goons rock up. They turn up and they attempt to kidnap Michael.
Yeah.
So here, the scene is set for another kind of action scene, big action scene with car chase, and it's over in just a few minutes.
I don't know much about trucks, but I don't think you're going to catch a pickup truck in a full rig.
Only if the Hawk's driving it. If the Hawk's driving it, he's going to have a chance, but. Generally speaking, I think you're right.
The kid's bundled into the back of a pickup, and then Hawk chases down this little pickup with his big rig, and he cuts off the pickup, doesn't he? And the goons run away and leave the kid behind, and then Hawk shouts after them, "He's staying with me. He's not going anywhere." And then so we know that, and then he tells, and the kid says, "Who were they?" And he says, "Ashy grandfather." So we know a bit more about the grandfather. The grandfather's a little bit dodgy, is it? He's
always got some shady contacts who would pull off a job like that, definitely.
Can we mention the fact is that the mum's blatantly dying and nobody's in a rush to get to her?
Well, this is the thing. Does everyone know? Does everyone know that she's dying? And we know she's ill.
Well, they keep on saying she sounds really weak. Like after that last call, they both agree that she sounds weak. She sounds really weak. She sounds really faint. And then they're not in a rush, are they?
No.
This is the next scene, isn't it? He's late again to the hospital. Unfortunately, they're too late. They get there. She's gone in for an operation, and unfortunately, she's died. And we get some sly emotional acting, which was a little bit tortured.
There's another piano moment of Meet Me Halfway comes in because she's died. So Kenny Loggins starts playing in the background again.
I mean, and after this scene, Michael runs away again but this time, instead of running across 6 lanes of a motorway to escape, he just flags a taxi, which seems a bit more in line with his character, I think. And he disappears at that point. The next scene, weirdly, is at the funeral. Michael's with Grandad, but Hawk does turn up to the funeral to just lay some flowers down, and I think he disappears again.
Remember what he said in the previous scenes. He said to his son that he'd never leave him again. He made a mistake. He'd never walk away. And the moment the mum dies, he just buggers off, doesn't he? He has time to himself. He parks his truck up and stares at the sunset.
Yes. Because the next scene is another kind of big action set piece where Hawk turns up at the granddad's father-in-law's mansion, trying to get in. Of course, the guy on the door says, "No way, you're not coming in." And so he backs up in his truck and smashes through the gates and knocks over about 17 statues and trashes the garden and actually manages to put a big hole in the front of the house with the truck. So it's like a big action set piece that they just bolted in from nowhere. It's completely. I mean, we keep using this phrase. It's completely over the top.
It is, but it's also the scene. That scene is so like something out the A-Team, isn't it? It's like literally, they even do it in slow motion, don't they? Like things popping, like the gates, these big iron gates, just bend easily and disappear, and then all these statues start flying, and then the front of the house completely caves in, and then he gets out and tramples across the crushed door on the floor. And you expect at that point.
And in terms of character motivation, I wonder what Hawk was thinking at this point. Like, I'll just drive the rig completely through Granddad's front garden and mansion and house and front door, and I'll just take Michael after that, and I'll get away. Again, there seems to be a massive lapse of any kind of logic here in terms of the script writing. Again, it's like it's put an action scene in. because, you know, it's light on action. So we'll just throw something here that doesn't really make any sense. And it's kind of laughable as well, I think. You know, as you said, it's kind of comparable to the A-Team, which was probably on around the same time. It's perfectly suitable for that. But for a kind of reasonably charged drama like this, you probably wouldn't have thrown a scene like this in. It's a bit of a mismatch in tone.
Yeah. And then he has the ignominy, doesn't he? It's very quick, this, isn't it? He gets arrested almost instantly. The police are just there, like milliseconds later. And he gets pinned to the floor, and as his face is being crushed on the floor, you know, he looks up at his son, and his son stares down and goes, "Dad!" and all that, you know. So, you know, that's to remind you, there's still a bit of a bond between father and son. Yeah. And then we cut to Hawk in jail, don't we?
No, he's referred to as Hawks in this scene by the prison warden. Goes, Hawks, you got a visitor. And so he's no longer Lincoln Hawk, Lincoln Hawks. So what's going on with that? I have no idea.
The slightly creepy Tim Salinger, the personal secretary of Grandad, comes in and offers him a deal to leave the state, and they won't prosecute. And he's like, "Oh, what does Michael think about this?" And then Michael's basically had a bit of a change of heart, hasn't he? I think he's sort of seen the carnage from the house and sort of said, "No, I'm going to stay with Grandad now."
Yeah,
as a custody.
Yeah, he's a loose cannon, isn't he? As we, you know, the viewer knew he was a loose cannon from day one, but like
we've seen it. We've seen what a terrible parent he is. We know. We've seen him in action, and it's taken this, probably him driving through the front of Grandad's mansion to kind of bring it home to him.
We don't get to see this, do we? But he agrees to sign over custody, doesn't he, for his son? But we know that's happened because it's mentioned later. But we don't get to see the signing over custody, which you think would be quite a big moment, wouldn't you?
Might be a key scene, really. Yeah. And again, Rob, you were talking earlier about Stallone mumbling or whispering a lot of his dialogue, and I thought this scene had a lot of that. You know, between Michael and Hawk when he's in prison.
It was more the world meets no one halfway, wasn't it? Whispery sly.
Yeah, a couple of lines I couldn't quite tell what he was saying. Yeah, it's difficult to tell what he's saying in some of the scenes. It's a criticism that's been levelled at a lot of BBC programmes at the moment, isn't it? People who are kind of mumbling there. We're from Manchester, of course, we naturally mumble. But yeah, lots of BBC programmes at the moment are being recorded with kind of either mumbled dialogue or like poor quality sound. And I wonder if Stallone is the kind of the inventor of this of this style.
It's in music as well, because if you listen to a lot of modern music, you know, I sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but the enunciation of like words, it's completely disappeared.
They've just got the vowels. The vowel sounds are all wrong, aren't they? I can't think of an example. Who's the Scottish singer who's the Scottish singer? What is his name? Lewis. Is it Lewis something?
Capaldi.
Lewis Capaldi. Yeah, he mangles his vowels, doesn't he, that lad? He really does.
Someone you love. Yeah.
God used to be some. Yeah, that one. You're right. Oh, God. Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
Hawk, he's out of prison. He's back in his truck. He's got shades on, so maybe he's been having a little cry. I won't blame him, to be honest. And we see him leaving the state. He's heading to Nevada, Las Vegas. And he gets to basically has to sell his truck, doesn't he?
Sells his truck for $70,000. He gets $70,000 for his truck because he puts $70,000 on himself to win the tournament, the arm wrestling tournament. And he says he asked the odds for himself. He says, "What's the odds on Hawk?" And he said 20-1. He puts $70,000 on, which I worked out in my GCSE maths he'd come out at 1.4 million if he won. So obviously he's putting everything on the line. He wins it or nothing.
So not quite the insider betting rules that we have today, is it really? Oh, yeah. What's your name? Can I just take your name down for the betting purposes? Oh, right. Okay, Lincoln Hawk. Okay. Yeah, Lincoln.
I'm Hawk. The other guy's Hawks. It's fine. We're not related. It's just coincidence. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
He needs to check his betting slip as well, because if he puts Hawk and Hawks wins, then he doesn't win anything. If you put Hawks and Hawk wins, he wins nothing again. So. And then the film totally changes, does it? The film becomes the Apollo Creed type montagey rock video, rock song fight, yeah. And it becomes round after round of arm wrestling. And I was texting you guys when I was watching it because I'd only watched about 5 minutes of arm wrestling, and then it suddenly was in the semi-final. It was like shit. and the semi-final's got about 8 people in it, which is I found really confusing.
Everybody was like pretty high off something. Everybody seemed to be very sweaty, very animated.
Sweat at this point is dripping, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is literally steam coming off your TV at this point when you're watching it because there's so much sweat. It's horrible.
And then we get the little cut scene to Michael. He's broke out of his grandfather's mansion. He's making the way. He's stolen a truck. He's making the way to the airport. Smuggles himself on a plane. I mean, I know there was less security pre 9/11, but still, I'm not so sure there's a little boy's going to be able to sneak himself on a plane as well.
I was watching this with my wife. I said this to her, and she came back with, "Oh yeah, but it's an internal flight in America, isn't it? And there's no kind of security checks for that." So I think pre 9/11, yeah, definitely that's true. But I think it was certainly like, especially with an internal flight.
Anybody who says we don't do any research, there you go.
I wonder how did he buy a ticket though? How that's what I wondered later on. I wondered how he actually paid for a ticket.
Oh, a credit card, clearly.
Yes, Granddad's credit card. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we mention this actor who plays the boy, David Mendenhall? Now he got slated for this film, and I have to admit, all the crying scenes, he's a terrible crier, isn't he? And he cries a few times, and he cries in a really when you do fake crying just as a laugh, going woo. That's how David cries all the way from
a bit cruel that he got 2 Razzies, though. I think that was a little bit cruel to give a kid 2 Razzies for that performance.
I think this is totally out of order, yeah. Because I didn't think he was that bad. He's a kid in an 80s film, and I've certainly seen similar performances to this. But actually, I think a lot of the blame for that's got to be levelled at Stallone and the other chap who did the rewrite, Sterling Siliphant, who was a bit of a veteran of Hollywood TV writing and wrote for like big disaster films in the 70s. Their rewrite, they give him terrible dialogue, which I imagine was possibly better earlier on. But I mean, it's so kind of obvious and kind of saccharine-y, all his dialogue.
He's kind of just quoting calories for most of the start of the film, isn't he? Just like the calories in chicken is 1,000 calories or something.
If you look at Stallone at the time, that's straight out. That's straight from him, isn't it? There's no one else who's written that line but him. If you look at him from that period when he was kind of like his Rambo physique, and he would have known all that kind of healthy eating, healthy living kind of stuff. I'd laid the blame on him, so totally not fair. I thought he was okay actually, the boy, and I think just the dialogue he's given is dreadful, and the things that his character is given to do are dreadful. Like this next scene we're going to talk about, where you see Michael's character like escape from the house, he suddenly turns into like this slightly short older stuntman who kind of like leaps off the who we only see from behind. And he kind of leaps out of the house, like from a second floor of like that huge mansion. Goodness me, he'd broken his legs, the poor thing. Yeah. So they give him all this rubbish thing to do.
If you believe in yourself, you can do anything. Yeah, it's the 80s.
You can break your legs. Yeah.
Have you not listened to the film? Life doesn't meet you halfway. You've got to go out there and take it.
Michael escapes because, lo and behold, he has found a secret stash, Granddad's place, of all his dad's letters. Unopened, kept for some reason. I don't know why they were kept.
Can I mention the handwriting? Because I looked at the handwriting. The handwriting is really childish. Because it looked like it'd been written by, one of those like chimps who can do first pictures and sell for thousands. It was like done with a pencil crane saying stuff like, "I love you, Mikey boy," and all that stuff.
I wonder if Stallone went all method. If he went all method here and thought, I'm going to write all the letters that we see in the film. Maybe he did actually write them himself. I don't know why I picture Stallone as having poor handwriting, but perhaps it's genuinely his writing, which might explain that.
It's very bubbly and the handwriting, but it really upsets Michael, doesn't it? And it spurs him to do his ninja.
That's what makes him escape, isn't it? That's what triggers it. Yeah,
it's what turns him into a ninja.
So what does he do? He escapes in a Jeep, so he can drive a Jeep. And on the way, almost causes another massive kind of traffic accident, which he just avoids. But I think
he dumps the truck at the front of the airport, and he just gets out, and the security guards just like, "Oh yeah, okay, you can just dump it there." And
yeah, he gives him the keys. He gives him the keys, doesn't he? He's like, "What?"
Yeah, just gives him the keys.
That's LA for you, man. That's LA.
So while this is going on, it's the tournament's got really exciting. We're in the semi-final, even though there's 8 people.
Has it?
Yeah, it's a semi-final, and he comes up against this guy called Mad Dog, doesn't he? Is he Mad Dog? Is he 2020? He's Mad Dog Madison, who eats a cigar, and this is where we start getting these like a real boxing tournament or a real wrestling tournament. They have little voices to camera, don't they, before the fights? We have little face to camera, and they say a little quote about why they're doing this arm wrestling. They all have interesting things to say, except Hawk, who just says, "I just want the truck." He's the most dull. All the rest of them got really amazing.
Oh, yeah, that was the favourite bit for me was the interviews. I found them hilarious. The Bill Hurley, I drive trucks, break arms, and arm wrestle. That's what I do best.
I drive truck, break arms, and arm wrestle. It's what I love to do. It's what I do best.
This is where it's really useful to employ wrestlers as your actors, as arm wrestlers, because they've all got that kind of trash talk and spiel before matches, haven't they? They've got that down. They've all got things that they say.
Yeah, WWF feel about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our hero is the dullest one, isn't it? Because our hero just says, "I just want the truck." All the rest of them is like going about breaking arms and this is my dojo and I rip arms off and things like that. And
now, guys, we're Manchester boys, and I think we're pretty hip and switched on and cool. Sometimes in our eyes, what I thought was quite interesting here was that as well as the men's arm wrestling event, there was a women's arm wrestling event as well, which he kind of just briefly mentions in passing. And I wonder if I can't imagine there would have been a focus on this at all. But yeah, I just thought that's pretty cool. There's also a women's tournament with all these kind of well built, strapping.
I really liked when they kept on cutting to the scorecard guilds. They had these 80s Buffy permed women who kept on changing a bit like the Karate Kid thing, where the All Valley Championship, where they put the names,
or a bit like Rocky IV, which was called the previous year. It's very similar to. I thought the whole arm wrestling end sequence was filmed like how they filmed the audience, how they kind of cut to the action. Not there was much action because arm wrestling's really boring. I thought the way they tried to recapture that kind of Rocky IV kind of verve that it's got at the end of that film. And it just, it just came up short because arm wrestling is, it's just a really odd sport to kind of hang an entire film on.
Yeah.
Even wrestling would have been an interesting film to make. Boxing's interesting. Escape to Victory, football can be interesting.
Yeah. It's just 2 arms, isn't it? It's how interesting can that get? Yeah.
Also, I think Stallone, though, is the only person who could have carried this character off because apparently originally they wanted Don Johnson. And that would have been... Can you imagine this film with Don Johnson? I probably would never have seen this film.
It would have been a completely different film, wouldn't it? I don't think it would have had the extensive kind of rewrites that it had to kind of accommodate Stallone. It would have been very different, but definitely more drama-like, as I think the original writer wanted it to be. Yeah.
The arm wrestler is John Grizzly, not Madison. He eats the stogie as he's just about to do that.
The lit stogie. Yeah.
He does, and then we actually get to see our hero lose, don't we? We actually get to see he gets pinned because he's lost a bit of confidence because he does Harry's boy and all that. So he gets pinned down, but then the announcer reminds us all that in the semi-final, and it's really protracted. This isn't it?
Yeah.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, please remember, this is a double elimination. Each of these semi-finalists have another chance. You have to lose twice to be out of the competition.
See, the announcer announces that don't worry, folks. You have 2 chances in the semi-final, and then so nobody's out, and then he goes. He's hurt his arm, hasn't he, as well? So he wanders off, and he's got a sore arm, and he gets invited up to his father-in-law's suite, doesn't he?
I did not understand this bit because Grandad at this present moment in time, although Michael has escaped. And he's going to see, Lincoln. Grandad at the moment has everything. He's got custody, legal custody. Hawk is out of his life, and this next seems really strange. Grandad goes to him again. The father-in-law goes to him again and kind of says, "Okay, to make sure that you're out of my life again, I'm going to give you a truck. And what is the other thing? I can't remember. He said
$500,000.
$500,000
$1 million in modern money.
today.
Yeah, so he offers him $500,000, and the top of the range truck, better than the truck you'd win for winning the arm wrestling contest.
Yeah. So my question to you, my fellow Manchester podcasters, would be, why does Grandad need to bribe him again? Because it seems to me quite a cynical way to kind of give the character of Hawk the impetus to go and win the tournament.
I said to you that I think he's a little bit scared of him, isn't he? I think after ramming through his house with a truck, I think he's just kind of, it's not enough to say leave the state. I think this is a payoff, isn't it? Take this money. I don't want to see you again. It's just like danger.
Yeah,
I think
because it has exactly the reverse effect, doesn't it? In terms of the storyline, it actually gives Hawk the impetus now to go and win, and also to reunite with his son, who's managed to get a plane by himself over to Vegas.
That's not it. If you remember, it's basically a really crude way of showing that that Hawk puts his son, has more morals than just accepting the money and running. What gives him the impetus to win is that his son turns up and he's still feeling a bit of a loser, isn't he? He's still feeling a bit of a loser, and his son gives him exactly the same speech that he gave him back at the diner.
That's right, he does. And did you notice in this bit how all of a sudden nobody's in the arena apart from them two? I don't know if you spotted it, but there's no one in there. If you look carefully in the backgrounds, like I know they're supposed to be under the kind of the seating, the raised seating net platforms.
Breakers.
Is that what they're called? Breakers? I learn something every day. Every day's a school day. And if you look in the background, there's no one there apart from them two. So they got a nice quiet little break when they evacuated the auditorium. There must have been some kind of bomb scare or something like that.
Yeah, the crowd is a real crowd, by the way. It's the genuine competitors and people who turn up for the genuine arm wrestling tournament. So it's they are real reactions. They basically filmed. Apparently, they filmed the over the top scenes the day before, the day after. So they still, they were all quite fresh. So it's like
I love the bit where Hawk rejects the deal, and I think the henchman says, "Mr. Cutler is done with he's done talking with you now," and he just he kind of flicks Hawk away, and then Hawk just does a punch and push through the door. I love that.
Again, this is like a big red flag for me watching this film, because it's like, so this is another kind of big action scene, isn't it? Where we've got someone going through plate glass. I wonder if I think that was this scene, because I don't understand why Grandad has to bribe him again. I think this is another late addition to the kind of film and the script.
Quite late in the film, we actually get the idea of the baseball cap, isn't it? Because it's one of these interviews to camera for the tournament. Hawk says that when he turns the cap, he flicks the switch, and like a machine, he becomes something else. He becomes something more. I always think, if he had to go to a custody battle, and the judge, the prosecutors would bring this up. So I understand, Mr. Hawk, you consider yourself a machine with a switch on your head. And then you can bring, so that's when we finally find out why he turns his baseball cap back to front, which is like the big moment.
And then we go back to the tournament again, don't we? And this time, Grizzly's drinking motor oil. But it doesn't work for the next bout with his bout with Hawk. But this time that doesn't work as well as the nicotine, because Hawk manages to win this one. So he should have stuck with the original idea.
Doesn't Hawk win once? Hawk wins once, and he lost the first one, and he gets through. They go winner. And in my head, I was working out, well, that's 1-1, isn't it?
So when they said they have to lose twice, does that mean they lose twice against the same opponent, or they lose twice against different opponents?
What happens is, they reckon it's supposed to go into like a loser's draw. So the ones that lose kind of fight each other, and then you've kind of got to win everybody in the loser's draw to make it to the sort of semi-finals.
I see. Yeah. Oh, well followed, Ellie. I totally missed that.
Well, he's got a really bad arm on it, and it keeps him cutting to that guy in the crowd with the blue T-shirt on who's advertising something, and he's really excited about the match. and we know he's in the final now with Bull, with the big guy. and there's lots of interviews to come with now.
He's fighting now for his son's honour in more ways than one.
We know he's got a bad arm. We know there's problems. We know that basically he's put every single penny on the line.
There is a couple of other ones. There's his arm wrestle with Madison, which he wins, and there's the Bosco one where Bosco accuses him of cheating, doesn't he? The black guy.
Yeah, that's right.
He says, I wasn't ready. Yeah, he does.
It basically says go, and before they've even started, he flips his arm down straight away, doesn't he? And he gets through on that one.
I wonder if that's just like one of those little sneaky moves that the professionals know. If the other one's not quite ready, they can score a quick, easy win by doing that. That's what I thought. Although he did accuse him of cheating, didn't he?
So as soon as he sits down with Bull, they hold hands together, and Bull forces his hands into Hawk's face, doesn't he? So he's bust up his nose straight away. He's got blood.
They have the wrestle the first bout, and he pulls his arm away, doesn't he? Oh, that's a foul. Yeah, that's like a foul in arm wrestling. You're allowed 4 fouls, and then obviously punching someone would be another foul. So yeah, you're not going to get disqualified because of that. Yeah. But then that's when they have to get the strap on out, don't they? They have to strap.
Is this after you've been polishing the Hawk? Polishing the Hawk and then get the strap on.
Stallone's really sweaty, so he's quite lubricated, and they get the strap on out, and they tie the strap on around the hands, and then we know this is the big one now. This is where that new music comes in, doesn't it? It's like that intense horror music, almost like. It's like.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, like I would say, considering Moroder did the music for this. If you listen to any of his other scores like Scarface, or I think he did like American Gigolo, his music is very clear throughout the film. It's like really, prominent. And I thought in this, he's really just phoned it in. He's not. I don't think he spent a long time creating this kind of incidental music. They've obviously got him for the name. But
we get to see Stallone's constipated orgasm and death face in 5 minutes, don't we? We get there's so many points where he's like practically lost. He's about a millimeter from the ground.
They've got the strap on, and they're going back and forth and back and forth, and
isn't he? He's like, I want to give you a world of hurt, little man.
Gonna rip your arm off. He says.
You ain't shit. You ain't nothing.
And we hear the faint voice of Michael in the background occasionally, which is very Karate Kid-esque, like "Come on, Dad!" And there's no. I wanted someone to shout, "You're going home in a body bag," which would be quite difficult for arm wrestling, wouldn't it?
It would.
But yeah, he starts doing the over the top move, doesn't he? He starts loosening his fingers, which to me, I don't know if you're about to lose. He start loosening your grip. I'm sure you would lose quicker, wouldn't you? But he loosens his grip. And we know what's coming, and the music starts intensifying. And of course, he goes over the top. And I think, does Michael shout over the top, or somebody shouts over the top? Like it's like the whole auditorium knows the name.
I don't know. I don't think so. It should really have that if it doesn't have it.
30,000 people shout over the top.
Like at the end of Rocky IV, they should have gone over the top, over the top.
Remember when they were shouting bull.
Oh yeah, they were bullshit. Yeah, and when he pulls it over the top and he slams Bull down, and then they go winner. And at that point, Kenny Loggins' music comes in again because we've not heard it enough. We've only heard it about 20 times in the film. And his boy runs up, and it's a very Rocky Adrian scene, isn't it? He embraces his son, and he holds his son aloft like a trophy. He's more interested in that than the trophy. And we know that he's won 1.4 million in a top of the range truck now, and.
So he can start his business that he was talking about.
The granddad's sort of looking on, isn't he, with sort of tears in his eyes and slight tears. And he gives him almost a slight nod, doesn't he? Like there's a little look of, okay, I've lost here, resignation.
Yeah, and acceptance that, the son's happy. And yes, I mean, it's really weird because they do have a chat the following day. It cuts to the following day, doesn't it? And they basically got no plans, have they? We know he's loaded now. He's got all that money in the truck, but the plans are, it sounds like the kid's not going back to school or anything. The kid's just going to go on the road with him and go to dodgy...
Live a life of beer and arm wrestling and oil.
And sleep.
And people really raping him and stuff.
Initiated by Bull, taking a bull by the horns.
Yes, sleeping in laybys and being buggered by truckers, and the kid seems really happy about the future.
For some people, that's a life, and
very 80s. There's a emotional soundtrack playing, isn't there? It's the trucks driving through these winding. Can we mention this? Because at the time when I was texting, I think Kel said it, and it's true actually. The scenery in the film, there's lots of beautiful shots, isn't there? It was well filmed. There's lots of American scenery. Yeah.
Yeah, some beautiful shots of the truck driving in the kind of American, various American landscapes. Really quite nice. I mean, this film does have some redeeming features, I think. But there's just too much. It's just too much of it for me. It's just too much of a kind of a general mess to kind of really kind of grip you, like say Rocky does, or perhaps certain installments of Rambo does. It never kind of grabs you that way. So, guys, before we decide anything about where we're going to consign this film, can we talk some numbers?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we know this is a Cannon film. Cannon got Stallone in because they wanted to prove that they were a big studio to everyone in Hollywood, and so they got Stallone in. So they would have seen the box office takings from Stallone's last few films. So if you look at Rambo 2, which was 1985, budget for that was $44 million, and worldwide it took $300 million. So I mean that's an insane box office take for 1985. But in the same year, Rocky 4 did the same. That was made for like 31 million, and worldwide it took 300 million also. And Cannon's first outing with Stallone, Cobra, although that ran into production difficulties and was severely edited down from its original kind of length. We've seen Cobra, haven't we, guys? It's completely incoherent. And I think we might have watched it one time when we weren't coherent ourselves, and that really didn't help my viewing experience of it at all. Anyway, that's maybe a story for another day.
You're in a different dimension, I think. Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, Cobra, despite all its problems, 25 million cost, and that made worldwide 160 million. So that did well. So Cannon for this would have been thinking, right, we've got Stallone, we've got the well-known worldwide sport of arm wrestling. We're gonna make a killing with this. But if you look at the numbers for this, we've got logins.
You've got
Hawk polishing, you've got strap-ons, you've got the lot in this film. And so the budget for this, same as Cobra, apparently 25 million. Now there are no figures that I could find for the international box office for this, but in the US and Canada, this film made 16 million, and that must have been, first of all, for Cannon, it must have been a bit of a shock. But they would have been expecting a lot more than that. I would have thought a lot more. I mean, even if you add on, say, 10-15 million for international, it still only made like $30 million against a budget of 25, and that they would have been expecting a lot more. Based on Stallone's kind of previous three, certainly. So I don't think.
It had a pretty reasonable opening day, didn't it? But I think the word got around pretty quick that it was a piece of crap, really. At the time.
Word of mouth got around saying, "Hey, it's like Rocky, but with a really boring sport attached, and relapses in character and things like that. Rather badly staged action scenes."
Favorite arm wrestling movie, though. To be fair,
yeah, it is. It's my number one, my number two, and number three as well. Yeah.
He's done some odd films still, hasn't he? Do you remember that one he did about country western singing called Rhinestone? He's at the height of his power at that point, and he made that film. It was like 1984.
What's the one with Sharon Stone where there's lots of weird, clunky, muscular sex in the show, and he plants bombs. He's a bomb expert.
Oh, that's a specialist. The Specialist, yeah, with Sharon Stone.
That's a stinker. That is a stinker.
Oh, that's really bad. Yeah, I think Stallone goes two ways. He tends to do. I think this one probably falls in the middle, to be honest. But mostly, he tends to make total stinkers, or films that are not too bad, quite good. Like Cliffhanger. That's a pretty good one from his '90s range, and Demolition Man. So he's got some good films behind. We won't mention Judge Dredd. for various reasons. And of course, Rob Schneider is in Judge Dredd as like the comedy sidekick, which I think kills its own dead before it's got anywhere. So yeah, that was the number. So for this film, I think it didn't do Cannon any good whatsoever, because this was a really bad year for Cannon, because later in the year they released Superman 4, which tanked at the box office, and Masters of the Universe, which was a big film for them, which also tanked or just made back what they paid for it.
That is a terrible film.
Oh yeah, I mean I mean personally I like Superman 4 because of nostalgia reasons and Christopher Reeve. But I mean, it's basically an unfinished film. They didn't even finish the special effects for it. It's if you look at it, it's really clunky and it's kind of embarrassing.
Isn't the Superman scene with the Statue of Liberty falling or something?
That's right. Yeah,
it's like green screen. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. It's really bad. But it could have been something had it been in the hands of a different production company. But Canon, famous for kind of just penny pinching. Not paying the contracts. We were talking about this before, weren't we, Lee? And eventually those chickens came home to roost. So yeah, I mean, in terms of respective careers, I think so. It wasn't good for Cannon, and I think for Stallone, he kind of set him on a bit of a downward trend for a little while, because he ended up doing I think next film for him was Rambo 3, and that made some money, because it's Rambo, but it wasn't as successful as the second one. And I think not long after that, Stallone started trying some different films like Lock Up and
Rocky 5,
Tango and Cash, Rocky 5, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. I don't think he didn't really find his kind of niche again until about Cliffhanger, really, which was about 1993. So this film was probably not. I mean, Stallone's obviously loaded and carried on making films and was still popular. But in terms of their careers, it probably wasn't the best move for either Cannon or Stallone, I don't think.
Well, he did have $12 million in the bank, so I suppose that...
He did, well, yeah. I mean, he probably thought, I'm getting paid, so even if no one sees it, then that's fine. Because like I said, I've got the money in the bank.
What I tried to do with this film, though, before we do our Morgue or Survival, what I judged it on when I watched it again all these years later, was I entertained? Am I smiling? And the answer to both was yes. I was still entertained. I was still grinning. I laughed unintentionally at a number of scenes. I don't think it's meant to be a comedy, but I do think it's hilarious in scenes.
If you'd done a super serious arm wrestling movie where it would have just been no fun at all, would it? It would have just you couldn't do it, So yeah, I can understand why they tried to make it over the top and cheesy, but yeah. It's for me, it's about the American dream, isn't it? It's about a guy, blue collar guy, pulling himself up by his own bootstraps. He's not accepting any handouts from anybody, and it's kind of the American dream, isn't it? It's two Israeli guys trying to show Americans the American dream.
Yeah, I mean that was part of their remit with most of their films, really. Certainly, they certainly championed America, and were never kind of critical of its politics or anything like that.
Yeah, because the whole father-in-law, he's just like a faceless. He represents the faceless rich guy, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And
corporate America, really, doesn't he?
You can tell, the actor who plays him, Robert Legere or whatever, that he's basically a working class guy who's done good. So
that's true. That does come through his performance, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. If he did another story, a really interesting sequel would be like about the history, about how that guy rose to the top with his. In his truck haulage company, what happened to Hawk when he was younger? Why does he hate him so much?
It's like a over the top prequel.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions unanswered, isn't there? Really, we never find out, do we, what the original reason for him leaving was? Right? Yeah,
maybe sleeping in lay-bys with strap-ons and polishing Hawks.
A 14-year-old boy.
So what's it gonna be, boys? Does this one rot in the morgue? Or make it on the helicopter to freedom?
So should we decide if it goes in the morgue or if it escapes to freedom? Should we go round and then?
Let's go round. Yes.
Yeah. So who's going first?
I'll go, because I think I've got a slightly different take on it than you two. So now, because I love Cannon. They've made terrible films and they made some okay films and they made a couple of great films. But I'm always interested to see the films that they released. I've seen a lot of them. I've not seen all of them. I thought this film really needed, if they're going to turn it into an action film, they should have gone all out and turned it into like maybe not something like Commando. The action's too tame, and if that's what they were heading for, they should have gone like for 15 UK 15 rates or maybe an 18. And I don't know how much of the original story they'd been able to keep, but they could have made it a bit more kind of raucous, with the arm wrestlers, a bit more violence here and there.
A bit limited by the PG rating, weren't they? A bit.
Oh yeah, certainly, yeah. And I don't know. I just thought for a Cannon film, who were specialists in that was their bread and butter. They were kind of low budget action films. They should have maybe. I don't know if they could have salvaged this film, but I would have preferred it to have been a bit more kind of raucous, something like along the line of Roadhouse or something like that, where Sly's always getting into. There should have been a few more arm wrestles along the way if they're going to kind of change it like that. I mean, generally there are a couple of good things in Over the Top, but I think generally it's just a bit too inconsistent all over the place, and you can tell, it was the work of four different screenwriters, including Stallone, and it just seems very, very inconsistent. Looking at it now, I did see it back in the day on video, but looking back now, I just think, it's not a film that I don't think I'll be going back to. I might go back to the soundtrack, perhaps some of those songs I'll revisit. But the film itself, I don't think I'll probably see it. So for me, I'm sorry, Rob, but Over the Top's got to go under the bottom and go to the Morgue.
Like, can I go next? Right, so I've got to say, I sometimes if we do stuff like this, I'm saying to myself, watch it with an open mind. Don't watch it as that kid from the 80s. Don't go into the film as a fresh viewer and try not to let it overwhelm you. But it's impossible not to. This is a film I saw probably about 3 or 4 times when I was a kid. Once you get over the disappointment, he's not boxing, he's arm wrestling. It's still mildly enjoyable, and it's quite entertaining compared to a lot of crap that's out there. And it's got loads of flaws and mistakes, but I could see, it's not the greatest, and perhaps if it was on a rainy Sunday, I may or may not watch it. But for me, I want it to survive. I want it to get on that helicopter and get to freedom. I don't want it to die in the morgue. I don't want it to be in there with Pay Dirt and the Fanatic. I want it to live. So. That's
true. I hadn't thought about it that way, actually. I mean, it's a million miles above those two films.
That doesn't take much, does it? But
no, certainly not.
I can see Stallone regrets it. Many people who were involved in this film regret it, but it does. The reason why it probably did so well on VHS is that it's very tongue in cheek. I don't think anyone's taking it too seriously, apart from Kenny Loggins. His song's very serious.
He always brings his A game, doesn't he? The Loggins and his Loggins.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is so big and bold, and Stallone complained at the time that it was just like a series of 80s music videos glued together, and some of the film does feel like that. But sometimes if you just want to escape, and that's what it is, it's only 90 minutes long as well. It is like mild, you can escape, and it is escapism, and it's silly. But yeah, I want it to live, so I'm going to say live.
So I think the deciding vote then has to go to you, Lee. What's your take on Over the Top?
Well, my take, I found it entertaining. I found it is kind of probably the closest thing that's going to put you into the 80s. You could almost smell the BO coming out of the film, the haircuts, the mullets. So nostalgia was definitely something I got from this film. I think the soundtrack as well. I personally quite enjoyed the soundtrack. I was kind of laughing through bits of it, just how ultra cheesy some of it is. I thought the film looked great. The cinematography was fantastic. Grand Canyon and him driving through to Las Vegas. And there was a lot of questions left unanswered, which was frustrating. I probably would have cut out the wife figure entirely and spent more time building up the character of Michael, and because you might as well just started with her. She's passed away. Don't know why we've still got her alive. Really, it doesn't really play much point in the film. Really, but I didn't think the son was too bad. Yeah, like I said before, I think he was okay. I think it was a bit cruel for him to get 2 Razzies, but ultimately, I think it is deserving of its 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb. I would personally put Sly in a perpetual arm wrestling tournament in the Morgue. So he gets to kind of stay in the Morgue, but he has a purpose. You know, he's kind of like I see the Morgue is kind of like the prison, and he's kind of running the arm wrestling game, and perhaps his father-in-law's running some drugs into the prison with his haulage company as well.
And perhaps he could be always kind of constantly rewriting the script, like on a daily basis, because he wants to change something. That could be his kind of purgatory in the Morgue. Yeah, that sounds fair.
He gets the hawk on the front of his coffin as well, and we show him respect, I think.
So eternal damnation of arm wrestling is what you're giving him.
Yeah. That's nice though. That's better than Zero. That's better than Fade to Black, isn't it? If you get to arm wrestle every day, yeah, he loves it.
That's not bad. I was just thinking this is our sixth film because we did a double special last time. But so we're about 50-50, aren't we? Like half in the Morgue, half escaping at the moment.
And of course these results. These are anyone listening should be really really clear that these results are not binding in any way. They're just our opinion, and these films do not disappear from the face of the earth. Unfortunately, perhaps in some cases, but yeah. So Over the Top is kind of freely available on. I think you can get it on DVD. It's not. It might be available on Blu-ray in some countries, and it's on. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime. Guys, I don't know where did you guys see it?
Amazon Prime is on. Yeah. That's where I watched it.
I saw it there. You can. It's still available on VHS. And all good video rentals. We've consigned Over the Top, sadly, to the Morgue. But I'd still, if you'd never seen the film, I would still give it a try.
Yeah,
sure.
Drink a few beers.
And if you want to know what the 80s was like, please watch that film or watch Karate Kid. Yeah. Just watch those two films, and you'll be there.
Oil yourself up, have a few beers, do a bit of arm wrestling, get some brute, splash some brute on,
put a headband on, and wear ill-fitting jeans. Jeans were so badly fitted, weren't they?
Especially the wrestlers. Although I kind of consigned it to the Morgue, I did enjoy revisiting. I'm always curious to see, canon films from the 80s, and especially this one, because they always had a lot riding on this. And it's just interesting to see kind of where they seem to go wrong, and some of the misjudgments they made in making it. But yeah, I mean, it's it certainly has some interesting points to it. So I'd certainly recommend seeing it.
Visit us on Twitter or Instagram just to put a request in if there's any film you really want us to talk about, and we'll give you a shout out and have a think about it as well. We try to choose films that we find at least entertaining. So if you've got any ideas, just put them our way. But we've probably got something in the back of our mind for the next one anyway.
And just remember, the world meets nobody halfway. Good night and good luck.
Go out there and take. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The world meets nobody halfway.